from Lagos, the nation's commercial capital. This is the News at 10. Live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight, Olumide Macaulay.
Hello and welcome. Tonight, Democratic Party candidate Joe Biden is the projected winner of the United States presidential election after garnering over 270 electoral college votes. Lagos Judicial Panel probing alleged police brutality fails to sit as representatives of NSAS protesters pull out over CBN's freezing of accounts as Army presents affidavit on Lekki shooting. Presidential delegation visits Southeast. Governors and other leaders in the region present demands to end agitations from the area. And U.S. coronavirus cases rise for a record third straight day with over 127,000 infections reported in 24 hours. Plus business and sports.
On business news tonight, DPR, other government agencies, oil and gas stakeholders begin investigation into the probable cause of the OVH energy tank farm fire.
And on sports news tonight, Super Eagles coach Gernot Rohr confirms camp will officially open in Benin City on Monday ahead of the AFCON qualifier against Sierra Leone.
The long wait appears to be over as Democratic Party candidate Joe Biden has been projected as the winner of the U.S. presidential election. This comes as the 77-year-old won the battleground state of Pennsylvania's 20 electoral college votes. He now has a total of 273 electoral votes, while President Donald Trump has 213 electoral votes. Mr. Biden says Americans have chosen him to be their president, and it's now time to heal divisions and unite as a country. Meanwhile, not conceding defeat, President Donald Trump's campaign has vowed to challenge the result, saying the election is far from over and accusing Mr. Biden of rushing to falsely pose as the winner.
Joe Biden's projected victory comes after 4 days of nail-biting suspense and protests across the country. At times, it appeared like one candidate or the other was heading for an early win in important states, but batches of mail-in and early votes meant the count often dramatically shifted one way or the other. All this amid allegations of fraud from the Trump campaign and the president claiming victory.
If you count the legal votes, I easily win. If you count the illegal votes, they can try to steal the election from us. If you count election interference from big media, big money, and big tech, as everybody saw, we won by historic numbers. And the pollsters got it knowingly wrong. They got it knowingly wrong.
But still, the former vice president remained undeterred, confident in his victory.
We don't have a final declaration of victory yet, but the numbers tell us it's clear, tell us a clear and convincing story. We're going to win this race.
With his win in Pennsylvania, the 77-year-old has crossed the 270 electoral college vote required to clinch the White House. Unable to hide their excitement, Joe Biden supporters took to the streets across the country to celebrate.
We're so excited. We're so excited. America spoke. We won. We won.
But for loyal fans of U.S. President Donald Trump, it's not over yet.
There's a lot of questionable things. They shouldn't be calling this election. There's dozens of lawsuits all over the United States right now. They should resolve those up. When the Gore-Bush election was occurring, Gore had lawsuits through 6 weeks. They should give this president a fair shake.
The election has seen the highest turnout since 1900. Mr. Biden has won more than 74 million votes so far, the most ever for a U.S. presidential candidate. Political leaders from around the world have started congratulating Joe Biden on his projected electoral victory.
We did it, Joe. You're going to be the next president of the United States.
Also making history, Mr. Biden's running mate Kamala Harris will become the first woman, first Black American, and first Asian American to win the second highest U.S. office.
Let's now go over to our Washington state correspondent, Mariah Bird, for an update on the U.S. election. Hello, Mariah. Tell us, what more do we have to know about the unfolding development there regarding the outcome of the U.S. presidential election?
Good evening. Yes. Well, we're in a time where the Electoral College votes have been pretty much projected, and it's highly unlikely that whether it's a recount, whether it's the lawsuits, that any of the numbers will change. The democratic process for voting in the U.S. is very clear, and there's various requirements and criteria that must be followed. And so all of those clearly have been followed. As we know, we still don't have 100% of the votes in yet due to the various requirements that have to be followed to review provisional ballots, mail-in ballots. And so we are a couple weeks out from having all those numbers in. But at this time, with the projections being as where they are, and knowing that the projections are leading toward former Vice President Joe Biden having over the 270 votes required, that it is highly likely that he will be the 46th president of the United States of America.
Mariah, the Trump lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, has said, hold your horses, who's calling this election? The news media or the electoral authorities? What's going on as far as the calling of the results of the elections is going on? What's happening as far as who is calling the election?
Well, these elections, there are board commissioners for every state for the election. So we have electoral board commissioners that have worked. This is what they do each and every day. We have lawyers that work in these offices each and every day regarding electoral law. And so these are the individuals that are counting the ballots. Various states have different rules and regulations, but whether it's the state secretary or the board commissioner for their state election processing, or the governor oftentimes will be that one that will provide that information once those ballots have been counted, once they know how many are outstanding. In the case of Pennsylvania, even if every other ballot that they have to count goes in the direction of President Trump, we know that due to the number of votes that the former President, Vice President Joe Biden has, it is unlikely and very highly unanticipated that he would be able to overtake that win. So the process is very clear, and the one that will call it are those election officials in each state.
Mariah, we've seen the euphoric celebrations on the part of the Biden supporters. What is their reaction to this victory, as well as keeping in mind that President Trump says he's going to court?
Biden supporters are elated. They are happy. They don't believe that there's evidence to be able to support this. As it was stated before, in 2000, this happened with Al Gore, and obviously it went to court. But many times with the recounting processes, they're not able to come up with something different. And so I believe that the Biden supporters believe in the process. They trust the process. And they know that their candidate will be the next president. So they are celebrating in the streets all across the country, extremely excited. But it's really a time of unity that Americans are showing on the streets of the U.S., really hoping for unification across the country.
Thank you, Maria. Now, our Washington correspondent, Maria Bird. For at least 30 years, the former Vice President Joe Biden has wanted to be president. He first ran in 1988, crashing out in his bid for the Democratic nomination over a plagiarism scandal. In 2008, he took on Barack Obama, but again stumbled at the first hurdle, securing less than 1%. Now at 77 years of age, it's the third time lucky as he becomes the oldest person elected as U.S. president.
How old are you?
Former Vice President Joe Biden's White House journey from candidate to nominee had a shaky start. He lost in both the critical Iowa caucus and New Hampshire primary in February before his first victory in South Carolina later that month, and then surged to victory in at least 8 of the 14 states where Democrats held primaries on so-called Super Tuesday in March, outperforming expectations. After gaining a large delegate lead from key Super Tuesday victories, Biden emerged as a clear frontrunner in a crowded field of strong Democratic rivals, including U.S. Senators Bernie Sanders, Kamala Harris, Elizabeth Warren, plus South Bend, Indiana Mayor Pete Buttigieg, all of whom would go on to give Biden their full-throated endorsements.
I believe history will look back on 4 years of this president and all he embraces as an aberrant moment in time. But if we give Donald Trump 8 years in the White House, he will forever and fundamentally alter the character of this nation, who we are, and I cannot stand by and watch that happen.
Sir, less
There's
than
plenty.
No, less than you have.
Mr. Biden and Donald Trump battle fiercely over the president's record on the coronavirus pandemic, healthcare, and the economy.
Due to Donald Trump's lies and incompetence in the past 6 months, have seen one of the gravest losses of American life in history. But sadly, it's not over. As awful as the past 180 days have been, the next 90 days could be twice as bad.
Before the election, Mr. Biden held a consistent lead over Trump in national opinion polls, although surveys in the battleground state showed a much closer contest. Joseph Biden Jr. was born on November the 20th, 1942, and at the age of 77, he'll be the oldest U.S. president in history.
We'll have more on the U.S. presidential elections in the course of the news at 10. But first, President Muhammadu Buhari has congratulated former Vice President Joe Biden on his election as the new President of the United States at a time of uncertainty and fear in world affairs. President Buhari says Biden's election is a significant reminder that democracy is the best form of government because it offers the people the opportunity to change their government by peaceful means. The Nigerian leader notes that the main fascination of democracy is the freedom of choice and the supremacy of the will of the people. The president adds that Nigeria looks forward to greater cooperation with the United States, especially concerning the economy, diplomatic and political levels, including the war against terror. Back here in Nigeria, the Lagos Judicial Panel of Inquiry on Police Brutality failed to sit after members could not form a quorum following the decision of the representatives of the NSAS protesters to pull out. The chairman of the panel, retired Justice Doris Okobi, explained that the youth representatives did not show up for the sitting, an action that comes after the freezing of the accounts of 19 individuals and a public affairs company linked to the NSAS protest. The panel is said to view this as a direct affront on its integrity. A federal high court in Abuja had on Friday granted a request by the Central Bank of Nigeria to freeze the accounts for a period of 180 days.
In their absence, we are handicapped. We cannot take any proceedings until all proceedings stand adjourned until the... Thank you very much.
According to the information we got from my lady, the chairman of the panel, that they couldn't go on simply because the people didn't feel right to come here because they are under sanction. One of them is in the list of people whose accounts have been frozen by an ex parte order of court in Abuja. I think 2 days ago or yesterday. They couldn't bear to live with that. And so they are protesting that what is the meaning of this? You set up a panel for the purposes of finding a solution to this issue, and yet panel members are now being sanctioned. People who are not just any other member of the panel, but protecting the special interest of the protesters are being sanctioned. And that is why they are not here.
You're watching the news at 10. In part 2, after the break, we'll have more on the Judicial Panel of Inquiry. We also have more on the U.S. presidential elections. Please stay with us. Welcome back if you've just joined us. You're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. Democratic Party candidate Joe Biden is the projected winner of the United States presidential election after garnering over 279 electoral college votes. Lagos Judicial Panel probing alleged police brutality fails to sit as representatives of NSAS protesters pull out over CBN's freezing of accounts as Army presents affidavit on Lekki shooting. Presidential delegation visits Southeast. Governors and other leaders in the region present demands to end agitations from the area. And U.S. coronavirus cases rise for a record third straight day with over 127,000 infections reported in 24 hours. Plus business and sports. Now, just before the adjournment of the Judicial Panel of Inquiry in Lagos, the Nigerian Army submitted an affidavit to the panel on its role in the October 20 shooting. In the affidavit, already before the panel, Brigadier General Ibrahim Taiwo, representing the Army, confirmed that the Executive Governor of Lagos State, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, had requested the intervention of the Chief of Army Staff to suppress the already brewing violence in some parts of the state. In the affidavit, it says Lieutenant Colonel Salisu Ovada Bello, the commander of the 65 Battalion, was at the Lekki toll gate and had fired blank bullets into the air in order to disperse the protesters. The commander explained that no one died and only 2 people fainted. The affidavit also states that Brigadier General Francis Omata, who was also at the Lekki toll gate, confirmed later that evening that there were no fatalities, adding that live ammunition was not used. Now, to the U.S. presidential elections, let's discuss further. And joining us from Abuja is the former permanent secretary in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Joe Keshi. You're welcome to the news at 10.
Thank you for having me.
How would you react to Joe Biden's victory, being the oldest man to emerge as U.S. president, and Kamala Harris being the first woman and the first black woman to become vice president of the United States?
I think it's a historic moment for both of them and for the people of America themselves. When you recall that this is the third time that Joe Biden will try to be president, and he made it a third time, if you are spiritual, you would just say God's time is the best. 4 years ago, he was persuaded to allow Hillary to run. And this time around, he decided for so many reasons to take his last attempt, and he made it. For the incoming vice president, I think it's a historic moment for everybody and for women as well, to see that for the first time, the United States of America is going to have a female vice president. When you put all this together, and the fact that Americans came out in droves, so despite the intimidation, the harassment, everything that was done to cast doubt on the election, Americans came out and voted, and their votes were counted, and the result is that they have a new president, the 46th president of the United States, in the person of Joe Biden.
Ambassador, President Trump vowed not to concede and is heading to the courts. What do you think?
Look, every actor knows that a time comes, you have to bring down the curtain. For Donald Trump, I'm sure that if he has not realized it, sooner than later, he will realize that his days in the White House are numbered. I don't think we should worry so much about that, because the victory was overwhelming. And to his credit, look, he mobilized his base, and while Joe Biden would be the guy with the highest number of votes secured in the United States history, Donald Trump would be number 2. And I think he should, bow out gracefully, believing that he's done his best. But if he decides to go the route he has elected to go, it's unfortunate that he'll probably live in disgrace.
Now, Mr. Biden says he wants to unite the country and so forth, and the challenges for him are huge. How do you think he will handle this?
Look, that has been, from the beginning, that has been his concern. Remember how he got into this race? He saw a couple of things that were going on in the United States, and he felt that what was happening in the United States under President Trump does not represent America, or to say to put it the way he likes to put it, this is not who we are. We can do better as Americans, and we need to change course. And I think this is what he campaigned on. Throughout his campaign, he was very, very consistent in making it clear that this is not who we are. We need to change course. We need to unify the people. We need to bring people together. And Americans need to collectively, face their challenges. And the electorate listened to him, and he won.
And we will... Now, the next 74 days might be crucial for Americans because of President Trump's posture, saying possibly he will pose roadblocks for the executive.
Look, 2 days ago, I felt very, very emotional listening to the news that Joe Biden's security around his house has been built up. And more interestingly enough, that there were planes, security helicopters overflying his house. Now, this was before the result was announced today. What does that tell you? Again, it tells you that despite President Trump's efforts and pronouncement, American institutions are still very strong. They are responsible. They know what to do. Believe it or not, the transition has started. The transition has started, and Donald Trump certainly cannot stop it. Already, the CIA has increased security around his house in Delaware. The Air Force, of course, the Air Force or police patrol is already in the air. This was before the announcement of the result, declaring him the winner. So I think we should not worry so much about Donald Trump. As I said, for Trump, the curtain has come down and the play is over. He should gracefully leave, recognize what has happened. Americans went to the polls despite all the challenges they had and the COVID situation, and they voted. The votes were counted, and the results did not favor Donald Trump, and he won 4 years ago. Hillary Clinton accepted defeat even before he was pronounced. So he should gracefully do the same thing. And that has been American custom. And we sincerely hope that he will live up to that tradition.
Finally, Ambassador Keshi, where does Nigeria fit in this expected new diplomatic atmosphere?
Well, I always like to, answer this question by saying that where we fit will depend on what we do in this country. Others are not going to decide how we fit into their program. We have to decide how we fit into others. So where we fit, what happens to us in the next couple of months under the regime of Joe Biden and Kamala will depend on exactly what we do in this country. If we decide to be productive, if we decide to be competitive, if we decide to be rational in our politics, if we decide to show empathy and be sympathize, with the people and do a lot we can, to become adults within the Community of Nations. I make the point all the time that the world will respect us, will be treated as equals and partners. But if we decide that that's not what we want to do, we continue with what we are doing now and then hope that the rest of the world will just take us as we are, well, all I like to say at the end of it is good luck to the country. But at the end of the day, how the United States relate to us and the rest of the world relate to us is determined by what we do ourselves in this country.
Thank you for your observations, Ambassador Joe Keshi.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
The former Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Joe Keshi, on the News at 10. Meanwhile, President Donald Trump, his campaign has vowed to challenge the results, particularly in the states of Georgia, Pennsylvania, and Arizona. Now, in a statement following the projection, the incumbent Republican president said the election is far from over and accused Mr. Biden of rushing to falsely pose as the winner. The statement says, Joe Biden has not been certified as the winner of any states, let alone any of the highly contested states headed for mandatory recounts, or states where our campaign has valid and legitimate legal challenges that could determine the ultimate victor. President Trump vows that beginning Monday, our campaign will start prosecuting our case in courts to ensure election laws are fully upheld and the rightful winner is seated, in a reference to legal challenges that have already been filed and many rejected in several states. The Trump campaign has also announced plans to seek a recount in Wisconsin and filed lawsuits in several states separately, Georgia, and also announced a recount there. As a consequence of the aftermath of the EndSARS protests in a solidarity visit, the governor of Borno State, Professor Babagana Zulum, was at the Lagos House Marina on behalf of the Northeast governors to commiserate with his counterpart, Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu, over the devastation following the hijack of the EndSARS protests. Governor Zulum appealed to youth to make their grievances known through other means of communication because Boko Haram insurgency started with a form of protest. Until date, the country is yet to see an end to that crisis. Governor Sanwo-Olu commended the efforts of his counterpart in tackling the insecurity challenge in Borno State. He's also saying Lagos is working towards supporting all those that are affected by the EndSARS protests.
The entire Boko Haram crisis was as a result of a protest by some youths against the use of helmets. And now it has taken about 11 years. Up to now, we are unable to get into the root causes of the insurgency. And therefore, I'm calling upon all meaningful Nigerians, and in particular the youth, to seek for non-violent measures of addressing their needs, which is very important. Again, I hope the Chief of Staff of the President will be coming to Lagos tomorrow. In addition to his coming, the upcoming NEC Committee on Public Engagements will also look into the root causes of such happenings with a view to addressing them holistically.
We want to say that this certainly will not determine who we are. We're going to come out of this stronger, bigger, and better. And everything would be done to ensure that businesses that are affected are supported. Government assets over the time will also be replaced. And the years of collaboration between our two states, we'll continue to cherish them. And we want to also wish you to the very, very best. We know that you have your own security challenges and issues, and you are dealing with them, with all the energy that you have. We want to commend you for that. We see you as a leader that indeed is fearless.
The Inspector General of Police also weighs in on the aftermath of the EndSARS protests with directives to his men. That's after the break when the News at 10 returns. Also, Department of Petroleum Resources and other government agencies begin investigation into the cause of the energy tank farm fire in Lagos. That's on Business News. Please join us again. Welcome back. The Inspector General of Police, Mohammed Adamu, has ordered the deployment of all legitimate force to protect lives and property of all citizens, including law enforcement agencies and their families, and to prevent attacks on private and public assets from any violent persons or groups operating under any guise. He is directing commissioners of police and their supervisory assistant inspectors general to checkmate any form of violence or riotous protests in line with Section 33, subsection 1 and 2 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended, with provisions for the use of such force as is reasonably necessary. Mr. Adamu affirms that the force will not tolerate a repeat of the horrendous attacks and killings, arson, and wanton destruction and looting of public and private assets witnessed during the recent violent protests in some parts of the country. He warns that the police shall deploy the full weight of the law and legitimate force, if necessary, to prevent a recurrence. Now, the World Trade Organization, WTO, may have postponed its decision on who leads the organization, but when the decisions are finally made, it'll be either Nigeria's former finance minister, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, or South Africa's trade minister. Both women have so far 50 years or more of experience in trade and economy, and both broke records in their respective countries. Our foreign affairs correspondent, Amarachi Obani, reports.
Nigeria's former finance minister, Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, is no stranger to the politics that permeates international organizations, especially when it comes to vying for leadership of global organizations. Back in 2016, she ran for presidency of the World Bank, an organization she had worked with for 25 years. Rising to the position of managing director, she however lost to American physician and anthropologist Jim Yong Kim, whom the U.S. backed. In 2019, when Dr. Jim's tenure was over, she said she would consider the position again if nominated and if the circumstances were right. She became a citizen of the United States in 2019, having spent several decades working and studying there. And now she's running for Director General of the World Trade Organization as a Nigerian American, and again the U.S. has decided to back her opponent, the South Korean candidate. Experts say this is because South Korea is a major strategic partner to the U.S. than Nigeria, and the U.S. is looking more after its own interests.
You cannot compare even American relationship with Egypt, which is here in Africa, not to talk of American relationship with Korea, or American relationship with a country like Israel, for example, or American relationship with Saudi Arabia. These are completely on a different level. And you would think that after what the Americans did in terms of the re-election of Additional at the ADB, that the Americans will think twice and say to themselves, look, Nigerians were not happy because we did this, let's not repeat the same thing here. But they did it, they just repeated it.
Some have described the U.S. action as a snub on Nigeria, whom the United States considers its most important partner in sub-Saharan Africa, especially in trade, as Nigeria's oil remains important to the U.S. economy, in addition to the large market for America and Nigeria's dependence on American investment. While some attributed it to Nigeria's growing ties with China and worry that America's actions may impact on her relations with Nigeria in the near future or not.
Donald Trump has actually highlighted quite a number of issues that he believes are going wrong with the World Trade Organization. And I believe that he feels that the relationship between Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala and China is way too cozy, that ultimately the ongoing trade war between the United States and China will end up being decided, or to a large extent, Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala having a very strong influence towards in which direction the case will be settled.
Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala has fulfilled 19 of the 25-step procedures for the appointment of WTO DG contained in the WTO agreement. Okonjo-Iweala has indicated in a tweet how unbothered she is about what she calls hiccups, and she says she's keeping the positivity going. Meanwhile, she and Nigeria will wait until decision day. Amarachi Ubani, Channels Television News.
Just to correct that, Mrs. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala's counterpart that she is competing against is from South Korea, the South Korean Trade Minister Yoo Mang-hee. Now, we're joined in the studios on the News at 10 by a senior lecturer in international law from the Nasarawa State University to examine the WTO leadership, Mr. Chukwu Emeka Eze. You're welcome to the News at 10.
Thank you.
Now, in view of the developments in the United States, what do you think could be the final decision of the U.S. on the WTO leadership?
The truth is that the United States of America has a permanent interest. And in terms of international relations, South Korea is of special interest to the United States. Nigeria is not. Like the Amarachi Ubani said, Saudi Arabia is of special interest. Israel is. Okay, maybe not Amarachi, but I heard it. So right. That being the case, the fact that Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala has become a United States citizen has not given her an advantage because, like the analyst said, they think Nigeria is pro-China. And even with the coming of Biden, I doubt whether it will change. If you look at United Nations Conference on Law of the Sea, most multilateral conferences and conventions, like the Rome Statute, the International Criminal Court, United States, whether under the Republicans or the Democrats, have always had a line of thought. So that is a serious hurdle on the part of Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. So, but we leave it to see. Let the lobby continue. Let's see whether Nigeria will be able to lobby Biden. Kamala Harris has a relationship with Nigeria. I think she's even an in-law in Nigeria. And I think Nigeria can use that leverage to penetrate the White House through Kamala Harris. And Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, I believe, will find favor with Joe Biden.
Is this part of what you think Nigeria should be doing ahead of the announcement by the WTO?
Sure, because America is a hard nut. You cannot ignore the interest of the U.S., although that is not just the only reason for the postponement of the November 9 General Council meeting fixed for Geneva. There is a cantonal, because in Switzerland, states, the way you talk of states in Nigeria, their own is cantons. There is the cantonal authorities in Geneva, they have a lockdown from November 2 to November 29. So basically, meetings of more than 5 people will not hold. So that is one major hurdle. Then the American hurdle. But basically, if the American hurdle is taken care of, the other one can easily be taken care of. Because the man there, Trump, now is a sitting duck. He wouldn't want to change his mind. I remember Joe Biden will be sworn in January. So basically, if America maintains its position till January, then only Joe Biden can save the situation.
And we'll continue to keep our eye on this matter and see how it unfolds.
Sure.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chukwu Emeka Eze. He's a senior lecturer of international law in the Nasarawa State University. Thank you for coming on the News at 10.
Thank you.
Now, the governors and leaders of the southeastern region have appealed to President Muhammadu Buhari to consider various demands of the stakeholders, of the region for the development, peace, and security of the southeast. The leaders were speaking in a meeting at the presidential delegation led by the Chief of Staff to the President, Professor Ibrahim Gambari, to get a first-hand impression of the needs of the people to foster growth and togetherness at the Government House in Enugu.
This engagement is not only necessary but vital for the federal government to better understand and most critically hear directly from the people what their worries and concerns are as citizens of our great nation.
We therefore with humility request our President, the father of our nation, to please look into the demands of these various groups of our people as presented today. Review same with a view to solving them. Southeast people believe in one Nigeria, and this is the reason we are in every part of this country erecting infrastructures, living peacefully with our host communities, and doing our businesses.
A promise made and a promise kept. That's how the Rivers State Governor, Nyesom Wike, is describing the Rebisi flyover bridge in Port Harcourt, the state capital, which has been commissioned by his government. For the governor, the completion of the project is in fulfillment of his promise made to the people of Rivers State. The Minister of Works and Housing, Babatunde Fashola, who inaugurated the bridge and also inspected other ongoing projects in the state, commended the state government on the urban renewal endeavor.
Project we do. It's the first on the checklist of completed flyovers flagged off barely a year ago by the Wike-led administration as part of its urban renewal and regeneration vision. The entire stretch of road and surroundings is now wearing a new look. Fitted with street lights, the clearly marked dual carriage Rebisi flyover is why this gathering, comprising of top government officials, party chieftains and other notable personalities, have converged on the former Garrison Junction to witness the unveiling.
This Rebesi flyover was awarded to Julius Berger precisely on the 8th of October 2019 for a completion period of 16 months. And I promise to the governor that Julius Berger will deliver the 3 flyovers within 16 months. Julius Berger history was made under 12 months.
For an obviously excited Governor Wike, it is a promise fulfilled for the good of the people. But he appeals to his special guest, the Minister of Works and Housing, Mr. Babatunde Fashola, to consider some level of refunds since the project is on a federal road.
All the flyovers I took around are all federal projects. Help us. Help us. I know you're one of the voices that Mr. President listened to. Help us. Let them refund us more. It is not easy to carry 5 flyovers federal road at the same time. I'm so happy today that I made a promise to my people, and today I fulfill that promise.
Mr. Fashola commends Governor Wike for his massive urban regeneration effort and shares his thoughts on the needed collaboration between the states and the federal government.
What I witnessed is a massive urban regeneration and urban renewal of Port Harcourt. But I can also say to the people of Rivers that we have responded to the entreaties of your governor and your government to do more. Here to bring the best wishes.
The minister goes on to commission the Rebisi flyover, upscaling the outlook of the metropolis. While the Rebisi flyover is now ready for use, the government says other flyover projects will be inaugurated by the first quarter of 2021. From Port Harcourt, Jeffrey Uzongo, Channels Television News.
The Department of, to Anambra State, where the governor, Willie Obiano, has reported the illegal mining and oil drilling activities of Sterling Exploration and Energy Production Company, SIPCO, in 2 communities in Ogbaru local government area to the federal government. The governor presented the case during a stakeholders' engagement on environmental impact assessment on the purposes Field Development PAN OML 143 held in Anaocha local government area of the state.
At the Anambra State Hospitality Complex in Agulu, Governor Willie Obiano is received by the Minister of State for Environment alongside other dignitaries. It's a stakeholders engagement organized by the Federal Ministry of Environment on the environmental impact assessment of the proposed Amashi Field Development Plan OML 143 by the Sterling Exploration and Energy Production Company, SIPCO. Also present at the meeting is the Vice President of SIPCO, Mr. Sandeep Singh, and concerned members of Ogwipele and Ogwaniocha communities who are alleging that their lands have been destroyed by activities of SIPCO in the area.
SIPCO's activities have been unguarded and unprotective of both the environment and the people. It is on record, it is the truth. The people are here. People who died as a result of activities of SIPCO.
Governor Obiano, who frowns on the level of devastation, reels out what he says are some of the illegal activities of SIPCO and calls on the federal government to address the issue.
Honorable Minister of State, your visit to Anambra State will give you a first-hand knowledge of how SIPCO activities have led to disastrous environmental degradation of Ogwipele and Ogwaniocha communities in our local government area. Their operations have further worsened the plight and living conditions of those communities, thereby creating palpable tension and restiveness that were unknown before the company arrived.
The minister discloses her discoveries and promises an end to the lingering issue.
This was a clear violation of Section 62 of the Environmental Impact Assessment Act. Consequent upon this, a stop work order dated the 6th of July 2020 was issued by the Ministry of Environment to SIPCO on the illegal activities. But beyond the stop work order, I want to state clearly here today that my ministry shall ensure that the full extent of the law is brought to bear on any erring party.
Although the management of Sterling Exploration and Energy Production Company maintains that the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation is aware about its presence and operations in Anambra State, the state government, the Ministry of Environment, and the host communities insist a permanent solution must be found.
Still ahead on the news at 10, U.S. coronavirus cases rise for a record third straight day with over 127,000 infections reported in 24 hours. Please stay with us.
Hello and welcome to Business News. The Department of Petroleum Resources says that investigation into the possible cause of the Jora tank farm fire has commenced in a bid to unravel the incident, which was contained earlier today by a combined team of firefighters. A statement by the DPR today explains that preliminary report shows that the fire emanated from a tank within the terminal and all safety control measures were swiftly activated to contain the fire. The statement revealed that operation teams from the DPR, or the sister agencies and stakeholders, are fully on ground in a bid to provide comprehensive updates as to the probable cause of the incident. Still on the Ijora tank farm fire, the National Oil Spill Detection Response Agency is insisting that the tank farm, which caught fire in Lagos on Thursday, is under control. Addressing a news conference in Abuja, Director General of the agency, Mr. Idris Musa, explains how stakeholders in the sector mobilized efforts to contain the fire and prevent it from spreading to other facilities in the area. Mr. Musa adds that officers from the agency are still at the site to ensure that the situation does not escalate. And that's Business News tonight. It's back to Olumide for the rest of the news at 10.
Tenny, on the foreign scene, Ethiopia's parliament has voted to dissolve the government of the northern Tigray region amidst a dispute which has escalated into armed conflict. In an emergency session, parliament declared the Tigray administration illegal and voted to replace it. On Friday, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed said airstrikes had been carried out on military targets in the region. There are fears the conflict could lead to civil war, which also could destabilize neighboring countries. The leaders of the Tigray dominated Ethiopia for many years until Mr. Abiy came to power in 2018 on the back of anti-government protests and curbed their influence. They say they have been unfairly targeted by purges and all allegations of corruption, and say Mr. Abiy is an illegitimate leader because his mandate ran out when he postponed elections due to coronavirus. Speaking of coronavirus, the cases have continued to rise for a record third straight day in the United States. Over 127,000 infections were reported in 24 hours, as well as 1,149 deaths. The news comes as officials announced that White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows had also tested positive for the virus. He is the latest Trump administration official to contract the disease. The U.S. is the worst affected nation in the world by COVID-19, with more than 9.7 million confirmed cases and a death toll of more than 230,000. And now for sports news, here's Kayode Alayande.
Thank you, Olumide. Welcome to Sports News. Super Eagles head coach Gernot Rohr has confirmed that camp will officially open on Monday in Benin City for Africa Cup of Nations qualifying match against the Leon Stars of Sierra Leone, billed for Friday, November the 13th at the Samuel Ogbemudia Stadium. The German tactician says the players are expected to arrive in Benin City after this weekend's games for their clubs.
Players are fit. There are some traveling problems because they cancelled one or two flights, because you know in Europe now it's another lockdown in certain countries, and it's not easy to find the flights, but our team manager is working on it with the traveling agency, and I hope that all the 23 players will be here at least on Monday. Some of them are playing on Sunday, traveling on Monday to Abuja or to Lagos, can only arrive on Tuesday, and so only really 2 days of preparation. It's Wednesday and Thursday in good conditions.
That will be all on Sports News. Back to you, Rudy.
Thank you, Kayode. And the main news again. Democratic Party candidate Joe Biden was today projected as the winner of the United States presidential election after garnering over 279 electoral college votes, but President Trump has vowed to challenge the election result in court. That's it on the news at 10 tonight. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Olumide Macaulay.